Well, good evening, everybody. Well, that was very good and responsive. Maybe a good showing for what your responsiveness this evening. I'm Paul Lisnick. I will be the moderator tonight. If I look familiar, I'm the political analyst at WGN TV. I hope you are fans of WGN. I will bring your regards to Mr. Skilling when I'm done. Thank you. All right. Tom just back from vacation, so he's a little tired. But also I host a show called Politics Tonight on CLTV every night at 6 o'clock, Monday through Friday, of which all these folks have been on the show and are currently appearing in a series called 50 Wards in 50 Days. So you'll get to hear from them as well there. And I hope you tune in because we take call-ins and let you ask questions as well. That's the end of my plug. So I'm going to be the moderator this evening for tonight's Budget Town Hall. It is hosted by the Chicago City Council Progressive Reform Caucus. That's these folks who are up here. Bless you. The City Council Progressive Caucus believes it is imperative that hardworking Chicagoans who might not be able to take the day off to go downtown and attend the official budget hearings on a weekday, as well as subject matter experts, have ample opportunity to give testimony to their elected representatives, and that's why they're here tonight. Now, the caucus is holding these hearings tonight because they believe strongly it's their duty as your elected representatives and leaders to provide Chicagoans an opportunity to suggest, to recommend, and indeed in some cases even demand that certain priorities be heightened and highlighted and listened to. So to that end, it's my pleasure on behalf of the Chicago City Council Progressive Council to welcome you to tonight's Community Budget Town Hall. We're going to hear tonight from neighbors and community-based organizations and experts on what you think the city budget ought to be looking like, which is a topic I've been talking about with all these guys on my show, and they indeed do have their views of what things should be like. We want your input. We ask that you adhere, though, to some guidelines in doing so, and I'll tell you about that. First of all, when you came in, you were requested to fill out a testimony slip, given testimony. We won't make you swear, though, with your right arm up. That was at the table outside. Now, if anybody didn't know that, or the rhythm hits you as we're going on and you want to be a part of this, and you can step outside and fill out one of these slips. It's the only way to come up because I need to call you up to the microphone. When I do call you up, by the way, we would like to know, sometimes they don't all say this, we want to know what ward you're from. They want to know what ward you're from, okay? Because some of your comments may be specific to an alderman, some of your comments in general, but all of them would like to know the members of their ward who have attended this evening. We're asking everybody to keep your comments to 2 minutes. It's the only way to get everybody in. It's kind of like Obamacare hearings. You gotta get everybody to talk. Everybody's just got to get 2 minutes to talk. We want everybody to have an opportunity to speak. We're going to end at 8:30. So if you've got written testimony, if you don't want to talk, you don't like that, but you've written it down, that's fine. You can hand it to me and I will get it to the panel as well. This is your hearing on the city budget. Some of you may have specific questions for your own alderman. While we're fascinated by them, we don't want to hear them. We would rather you talk to your own alderman after the meeting. Come up and visit with them. They will talk to you after the hearing if it's something specific to your ward and your alderman. The Chicago City Council Progressive Caucus wants to receive your testimony, make it part of the public record. So what you say tonight will indeed be made part of the public record at the Committee on Budget and Government Operations. A couple of special thanks we want to give out tonight to Carl Rosen and the United Electrical Workers Hall for letting us be here tonight. Thank you, Carl. In addition, we want to thank CAN TV. You see these cameras over here. We are indeed on the air. Hello, audience in the viewing area. I felt comfortable. There's a camera here. I can continue. We want to thank CAN TV for covering this event, for cable, for online viewers as well. The program is being cable cast live on Channel 27. So if you want to text somebody at home, tell them to tune in to Channel 27. It is streaming live as well at youtube.com/CHICANTV. CHICANTV. youtube.com/CHICANTV. And you can get information about CAN TV programming at cantv.org. All right. So with that being said, let's get underway. I've got the slips that have been handed in, and even more slips are coming. And I'll give that back to you. Should I start with this stack then? Oh, I'm sorry. But before we do that, you want to hear from some aldermen. So I almost messed up. So let us begin. We're just going to have a couple of opening remarks first from Alderman Tony Folks of the 15th Ward.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank you all for coming out in this rain, and it means the world to us. I always like to thank my progressive caucus members because they do a wonderful, wonderful job. And I think of them like a pot of soup, you know, and each ingredient you put in that soup, you put it all together and it makes a wonderful stew. But this, and the same as you all, I was reading on Saturday, and I want to share this with you because it means, I want to personally say it to you, but also to you all that are here and that can hear my voice. It says, hearing from God before you share your dreams. Why? Because it's not enough to have a dream. You must have a team. Okay? You need people to help you, cheer you on, lift you to a higher level. The right people motivate you to grow, stronger, think better, work harder, take risks more, and compel you to continue. And I really have to shout out to the 15th Ward because they are my oxygen. And when I'm down in City Hall and it gets a little tough, and when I'm out talking to people, you give me the power. So I thank you for that. And this week, I had to go, last week I had to go and visit a constituent. I received a letter from him, and it was so important before I went into budget. So I didn't have his phone number. I had his address. I said, couldn't make it on Saturday, so I had to go where he was during the week. So I went out to visit him, and his first reaction was that she found me. This person, his name was Jaden. He was a second grader at Beasley, and he had the regular letters, you know, he wanted programs for the park and things like that. But his schoolmate, she raised her hand, I called on her, and she goes on to say, I'm poor, and we don't get good food. I live in a food desert, 7 years old. I live in a food desert. I have to eat at McDonald's, and McDonald's doesn't have good food, not healthy food. And literally, I have never felt physically like I did that moment. And it seemed like I was just going to fall out. Why is it that a 7-year-old girl, little girl, is worrying about big adult thoughts? She should be out there just doing her homework, jumping double dutch, enjoying being a child, but yet she has to think about adult things. Where have we gone short? We have to take back. And I just want to close with a 1-minute story. It was a gentleman, he was out in the field. He was planting a fruit tree. And another gentleman came up to him and he said, what are you doing? He said, I'm planting a fruit tree. He said, well, that's dumb. He said, by the time this tree grows and matures, you'll be dead by the time the fruit comes. He said, that's where you're wrong. He said, I'm not planting this for me to eat. I'm planting it for the ones behind me. And that's what we need to do. We have to worry about Jalen and his roommate. What we do now affects them. So thank you for coming out. I thank you in advance for your comments, and enjoy the evening. Thank you.
We're going to have other preliminary comments from Alderman Scott Wagaspack of the 32nd Ward. And Scott, if you would just introduce the colleagues up here so we know who's coming, and then we're going to turn to you.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Wagaspack from the 32nd Ward. To my left here, I have Alderman Nick Sposato from the 36th, Alderman Tony Folks from the 15th, Alderman Fioretti, Alderman Sawyer, Alderman Arena, and Alderman Munoz. And we have Alderman Leslie Hairston, who could not make it tonight. But if you can just imagine, this is what our Sundays look like as well. Our better halves, which I think we've all become in our own little group, always wonder where we're at on Sundays. But typically we're meeting, talking about the issues that hopefully you're going to bring to us tonight and how we'll try to resolve those over the upcoming months and years. But let me talk a little bit, just to give you a frame or a little picture of what the Progressive Caucus does. Today we're here to listen to your concerns about this year's 2014 budget. And a couple of years ago, we held a meeting like this last year, talking to different constituents, trying to figure out what the needs of people in this city are. In part because the mayor decided that he did not want to have public meetings to let people speak to him and to the department heads as they had in the past about issues that people were going through, both in their personal life, on their block, in their neighborhood, in their ward, in their community. And that's what we're here to do again, to listen to you tonight to those issues. Will we have an answer for you tonight about each one of those issues? We may or may not. In our minds, what we're trying to do is make sure that we bring all these ideas to the table, and we'll go back and discuss them. We'll work through them as Progressive Caucus members, bringing these issues to the City Council and saying, look, this is what our city's going through, this is what people are going through, and we as a Progressive Caucus, in some ways, have kind of drawn a line and said, these are the kind of issues that we need to start talking about, that we can no longer ignore them, and we're willing to step forward and bring those issues out. Not surprisingly, a lot of these issues are debated in the City Council. I know a lot of you cannot attend the budget hearings that take place during the day, and certainly not the ones that take place on the last day or two of the budget hearings that last for about 2 weeks. So this is our opportunity to hear from you. One of the things we're going to be talking about tonight or listening about is an increase in crime in all parts of the city. It's a concern for all of us. As Alderman Arita pointed out recently, it's a reason for lack of support from us for Mayor Emanuel's budget last year that shortchanged us on police safety. The mayor spent an excessive amount of overtime in both police and OEMC dispatchers. Those are the people that take your call on 311 and 911. Close to $81 million through the end of October. That's through the end of October. They're projecting another $81 million or more next year. And that's with having not enough staff to take the calls on a day-to-day basis and not enough police officers to take the calls that are coming in. And it's something that our caucus called for in a recent readdress to the mayor's budget, which asked for the allocation of at least $50 million to the CPD so that we can hire 1,000 police officers to get us back to the point that we were a few years ago before retirements and attrition took away or stripped away our police force. Mental health clinic closings left our citizens short on access to much-needed health care. And admittedly, many of us voted for the mayor's budget the first year thinking that some of these issues would be addressed, and we were wrong. We've heard from many organizations and individuals throughout the city that work in this field that there are a couple thousand people left behind by the closing of our mental health clinics in the city. As a group, we've called for the full restoration of $2.2 million in funds for the reopening of those clinics. It became clear to us pretty quickly that the available services have not met the promised standards since the closing of these clinics. And supporting those most in need in our city is not only the right thing to do, it's a public safety issue for all of us in our communities. While aldermen do not have legislative authority over our local schools, our public schools, we as a caucus join many of you in fighting the attack on teachers as they used it in a wedge between our children, driving a wedge between teachers and parents. We joined you in the fight to stop school closures and the cuts to our neighborhood schools. And we made a push in Springfield to have a long-term facilities plan, real pension reform, and wraparound services for our kids. And most importantly, what our caucus has pushed for, as you saw last year and we will do again this year and in years to come, is to make sure we have an elected school board in the city of Chicago. Now, as we look at the schools in our city, we can't do this without looking at TIF reform. TIF funds have diverted millions of dollars from our school system, like the upcoming McPeer-DePaul deal. Today's budget includes an $8.7 million surplus that the mayor called for. That's not nearly enough money to go back into our schools to prevent further cuts in our educational system. We are calling for an audit and a sweep of all the TIF funds throughout the city. Finally, we've been public about the need to look for finances, revenues, well beyond what the fines and fees that have been tacked on to people throughout this city. And those are fines and fees propping up our city for the last few years. We've called on the Emanuel administration to join international cities in creating more equitable sources of revenue that ensure that corporate citizens contribute their fair share to the tax base. As a Progressive Caucus, we all appreciate the difficult financial situation our city is in. We're deeply concerned that the proposed budget this year again relies mainly on increased taxes and fees for all Chicagoans. Our caucus has worked hard to make government more efficient and save more money while directing it to other priorities. As Alderman Sawyer said today during the budget hearings, sometimes saving a few dollars in the name of privatization isn't always the best approach in government. Laying off water department workers to save $200,000 doesn't work when the mayor sends the jobs off to Tokyo. But we know we can't realize this vision that we have shared with you without a fair and just city budget that ensures that all Chicagoans are safe, that our streets are safe, our children are safe, and everyone has access to the needed services that we should provide. We're here today to listen again to your concerns, and I hope that you would step up, speak out. Remember, there's children here. But we're glad all of you are here today, and we look forward to listening to you and doing the best that we can to make sure we have a fair and equitable Chicago for all of us. Thank you for being here.
Okay, once again, if you've got something to say, we need to fill out the sheets. They're still collecting those. And here's what I'm noticing as I'm looking through them. Some people are talking about the very same thing. So if somebody makes a point that you've made and you wish to pass, that's okay too. Just say, I just repeat what they have said. Secondly, some people have really written out detailed questions. If you're not comfortable getting up to the mic and you just want me to read your question, just tell me that and I'll go ahead and do that. All right? Finally, as a kickoff point, you might be interested to know that a study was done by former Alderman Dick Simpson, now a professor at UIC, which basically found that the current city council is the most rubber stamping city council in our history, even more so than Mayor Daley under Emanuel. And I'm saying that because if you're going to point out the people that are not the rubber stampers for this mayor, they're sitting at this table. Let's begin. First question, Matt Ginsberg-Jekyll, who wants to talk about reopening the mental health clinics. Matt? Always speak in the microphone because we are on TV, and Alderman will do the same. Sorry? Oh, yes, they're not going to respond to you. That's right. So they're listening. They're taking notes. So say as you would. And also, I didn't say your ward, so do fourth ward. You're from the fourth ward.
Yes. I want to thank you all for hosting this meeting tonight. It's good to have somebody in the city council that is wanting to listen to the citizens. You'll hear tonight from a number of people that were affected from the Chicago's mental health clinic closures. You won't hear from everybody who was affected because some of those people are no longer with us, including Helen Morley and others. Helen Morley's heart, as you heard on other occasions, gave out from the stress associated with her clinic's closure. We commend you for calling for the reopening of those mental health clinics, and we also want you to push even further to try to get this city to finally sit down and make a plan to make sure the mental health needs of all communities are finally addressed. Unfortunately, right now, although the mayor didn't propose any additional clinic closures in his budget, he is in the process of allowing his health department to sabotage our remaining 6 clinics. They have refused time and time again to join the county care referral network. They are not interested in anybody who's getting insurance benefits being able to access care at those remaining clinics. And we see very clearly that this is in response to their longstanding agenda to privatize and close these services. So I just want to urge you all to try to lift up the voices of those you will hear tonight who've been affected by these clinic closures, continue to push on this and many other issues, because mental health isn't just another issue, it's the glue that holds all the issues together. If you don't have a home, you can't be mentally healthy. If you don't have a school within walking distance, you can't be mentally healthy. If you don't have a job, you can't be mentally healthy. And none of those services are possible in any stable sense of the word without people being able to have a space that they can go to in their community and have accessible care regardless of their insurance. I know you all know that, but I encourage you to lift up the voices of those tonight and make sure that they get to the powers that be so that we can not just reopen those 6 mental health clinics, but we can stop the process of constant cutbacks to mental health and so many other services we rely upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And what I'll do to move things along, by the way, is I'll call up the next speaker and then let you know who's going to be on deck so that you're ready to go and we can move this along fairly quickly, okay? I'll read that in just a second, Scott. Next up is Charlotte Chapman from the 4th Ward, who wants to make a comment about health insurance. Charlotte, once again, they won't be responding to you. They're here to take notes. Charlotte? Is Charlotte not here? She's coming up? All right, and on deck will be Carol Saywall. So Carol, be prepared to go up after Charlotte. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Charlotte Chapman, and I'm a retired city employee. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Thank you. I want to give testimony about the impact of the mayor's plan to stop providing subsidies for the retirees' health insurance. I'm living on a very tight budget, okay? It's so tight I can't even pour teeth, okay? It's so tight that I'm scared to go to the doctor because I owe them. When I go to the doctor and get any kind of test, mammogram or colonoscopy, I got problems with my legs. If I go to the hospital, the first thing they're going to ask me is, where's their money? You know, with copay and all that. So, I just want everybody to know, and I'm sorry, and I'm nervous, okay?
Don't be nervous. But you got a minute left.
You know, what will I have to cut off? Okay? I mean, I can't continue to go on like this here. Okay? I was promised as a city worker, and for the 30 years that I worked for the cities, that I was going to be taken care of, at least health anyway. You know, I know how to feed myself, but health. Okay? So could somebody please tell the mayor to stand, tell the mayor. I just want y'all to tell him to keep that commitment that he made to us by providing us with the subsidy that allowed us to get, at least basic help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chapman. And Carol Saywall will be coming up next from Ward 20, and on deck will be Charlie Temkin and perhaps David Temkin. I see both names here.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. And my name is Carol Saywall. I am treasurer for my local clinic board, and I'm also treasurer for the citywide community board. And we have been fighting for years to try to keep our clinics open, but recently they closed 6 clinics, and there was one woman Matt mentioned, Helen Morley. She used to always say, if they close my clinics, if I lose my therapist, I will die. She always said that. Then it happened. They closed the clinic, she lost her therapist, and she died. It's as simple as that. And the last time we had a big meeting like this one, Tom Dart came. He's the head of the county sheriff. And he was complaining because of all the mentally ill people that he had in jail. He said, we don't really have the services or the facilities or the know-how to deal with all these people. But they wind up in our jails because we don't have the clinics anymore. And we don't have the clinics in our neighborhoods, and we need our clinics. It's important for people to be able to have some places they can go nearby. Some of the people that I know, consumers, that's what we call them, consumers, they have refused to go to the mental health clinic because they have to catch 2 buses, maybe 3. They have to walk. They have to go through neighborhoods that they don't know. And it's a drag, really. So we're not going to tell you to ask the mayor, because I don't believe in the mayor. I don't think he'll do anything, honestly. But if you all can do anything to see that we keep our clinics, because when Daley was mayor, we got on him about it, and he acquiesced, and he let us keep our clinics. Now we got somebody that doesn't care about the public at all, is not interested in what we want at all, and yeah, that's all. So we would ask you all, if you can, any kind of way, be sure that they don't close any more of our clinics, and they can reopen the 6 clinics that they closed recently.
Thank you, Ms. Saywall.
All right.
Thank you very much. By the way, I should note, the aldermen, if there is something they need to say, it might be that they want to let you know they can't vote on something or something's not within their power. They may grab one of the microphones here to speak to that, but that would be the only reason they'll do that, is to let you know something might not be within their power. And so now we're going to be hearing from Charlie and David Temkin of the 1st Ward, and on deck will be Kimberly Cotton.
Hi, my name is Charlie, and I'm 8, and I go to Burley Elementary School. And due to the budget cuts, I've lost my gym teacher in art and reduced class size. It's not fair, and I think we should take it back.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. David?
Good evening. This young lady is the reason I'm here today, and you people are the reason I'm here today. For 15 years, I've been a city employee as a social worker in Chicago Public Schools. I've worked from everywhere, from West Pullman to the jungle on the north side. I want to say this as a fact. There is one man that I've worked for as a principal of a school that I have respect for. And I have been in a lot of schools in this system. Mayor Emanuel should be ashamed, and I am ashamed to say that he is a Jew. The mental health crisis in this city is at an epic proportion. In the last 2 weeks, I have had to hospitalize 12 students, inpatient, outpatient, and partial placements for behavior disorders. Kids are stressed out in school. Having them be tested 11, 12, 15 times standardized tests a year is unbelievable. I'm embarrassed by our president. I'm embarrassed by our Secretary of Education. I'm embarrassed by the politicians that aren't here in this Progressive Caucus because they do not speak for me. The crisis is going to start with the children, and they are going to go down because the schools are stressed out, and we have dysfunctional schools in this city because there is no resources, and there has not been resources for years. Teachers are stressed out.
If you'd please wrap, sir.
Teachers are stressed out. Teachers are under the ridiculous reach evaluations that make them feel, and the system has always made teachers feel like they're the problem. I mean, I go into classrooms and teachers say to me, I don't know what to do. The principal keeps coming in and she makes me feel like I'm the problem here. I'm trying to deal with these 5 kids and she doesn't have any solutions. Wrap it up. And the parents are out here too. And the thing I want to make a clarity. Teachers, the 40,000 teachers in this city are also parents. And we're stressed out because we're dealing with a longer school day, less time to do homework, less time to be with our families, and budget cuts that are ridiculous in our schools.
All right, thank you, Mr. Temkin. Although I have one question for Charlie. Charlie, will you agree to run for mayor one day? Would you run for mayor? She says yes. All right. Next up, Ms. Cotton, Kimberly Cotton. What ward are you from?
5th Ward.
5th Ward, and Dorothy Harding, you're on deck.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Cotton. I've taught at North Lawndale YMCA for 9 years. Prior to that, I was a special education teacher for 19 years. I'm a Southside resident, but I teach preschool. Charlie, I teach preschool at North Lawndale YMCA. I started working for the YMCA to spend more time with my daughter, who was enrolled in the after-school program. Back then, teachers and staff had the time and resources to give kids individual attention, personalized lessons, and even some extras like field trips to the symphony. But now, 9 years later, I go to work and wonder what happened. There are no field trips in the early childhood program I work for. Half the time, teachers are reaching to their own pockets for essentials like materials for science projects and sometimes winter coats for kids who don't have any. Last spring, all of our teachers got an email stating that they'd have a yearly budget of $1,000 to spend on our kids, and none of the children have seen a penny of that money. So you can understand why I'm skeptical that I am never going to see the $11 billion that our mayor promises he's spending on our kids this year. Where is that money going? Chicago has seen a net decrease of nearly 4,000 early learning slots this year. $11 million wouldn't begin to pay for that. We're short 714 slots in North Lawndale's community alone. The child up here with me today and the 714 children like them might not achieve their dreams to be firemen, doctors, Charlie's gym teacher, because they're being excluded from Emanuel's promise to make every child college ready. It is not just slot shortage that's the problem. The city's early childhood programs are so underfunded that our YMCA Center is forced to find kids who qualify not just for one, but for 2 or 3 funding streams at once just to keep our doors open. The teachers and centers are overworked, understaffed, and desperate to fill the few slots we have. More than once, I've seen a child join a center before we could even find time to finish their paperwork. The children were kicked out 2 weeks later when it turns out that they didn't qualify and have enough extra funding to even stay in the center or keep our center afloat. This unstable environment is damaging for the teachers who work long hours for poverty wages, the parents who struggle to find care for their kids so they can go to work, and most of all, the children being cheated out of a bright educational future. Mayor Emanuel says he's putting our children first, but in my community, our kids feel like an afterthought. The kids standing in this room with me today dream of becoming doctors, lawyers, councilmen, aldermen, and on their behalf, I'm here to demand that we all hold our city accountable for the promises that have been made to our children's futures. So, Mr. Emanuel, where is our $11 million?
Thank you, Ms. Cott. I'll tell you, when the kids show up, it's a good strategy, isn't it? I just let the clock go. All right, I know. I also want to point out Ben Juransky's here from the Reader, who gives a lot of support to these folks. Thank you, Ben, for being here tonight. Ms. Harding of the 15th Ward is here, and on deck, the Reverend Jerry Rankin.
Good evening, my brothers and sisters. My name is Dorothy Harding. And I'm an active ASME retiree. I'm hoarse.
Just speak as close to the mic as you can so people can hear you at home, too.
Okay.
Thanks.
I worked for the Chicago Public Library for 33 and a half years. We was very concerned about the Mayor Emanuel plan to phase out subsidy health care for the city of Chicago retirees. This is unfair and could be very serious health concerns for many retirees. After this cutback, let me tell you what this means to me. First, because we started working for the city and I am not eligible for Medicare. They didn't have Medicare at that time for me. So since I retired, I have to pay for my health insurance out of my pension. But back in the city, employees will assume that the city will help cover the cost of their insurance. And for many years, the city followed through on their commitment and provided subsidy to help me cover the costs. Even with subsidies, I have to be careful about what I spend so I can pay my rent, my utility, and food and medication. Now the city planned to stop subsidy. I'm facing a big increase in my expense, and things are going to be much harder. I am a diabetic, and I do everything to maintain my health. I eat, I exercise, and because of this, I have been able to control my diabetes. But when I needed medication, what I am going to do, how will I be able to cover the cost of medication and insurance and everything else I need to live? I can't go out to get another job. When they started talking about the ending of the subsidy, I said, I felt like I had 1 foot already in the grave. Now the mayor is cutting us out, starting to feel like I got 2 feet in the grave. The increase of cost of retirement is going to affect me January 2014. It will range from $37 a month to $170 a month more. Retirees don't have that kind of extra money laying around. We budget carefully. That kind of an increase will hurt. The city has betrayed the retirees. We was told we would have health until we retire. We assumed that we would have a little security when we retire, and now they are scratching us away. We understand that the city may have problems with the budget, but then why do I need to find the money, a big project, when they go out and programs and projects, and they come up with money for the highway that's just built out there where the old steel mill was at? I urge you to tell the mayor plans to go back on the city commitment and to its retirees and continue to provide us with modern subsidy and allow us to live with a little bit of dignity.
Thank you, Ms. Harding. Reverend Rankin of the 34th Ward, and on deck is Ms. Lula White of the 2nd Ward.
Good evening, Alderman, Progressive Caucus. First of all, I just want to thank you for the great work and the support in having restored the non-for-profit, the water and sewer exemption for the churches. I have 3 issues, short and sweet. One of them is I'm the business agent for International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 21, that represent the OEMC, call takers and dispatchers. Last year, we tried to warn that by consenting to the mayor's budget that it would kick overtime into high drive. And so the numbers are out, the numbers are clear that reflect the costs associated with not hiring and making cuts to the staffing levels there. The effects of that is tremendous amount of hours, and the union is really pretty much concerned about the workload that's there on these workers, that it's not a matter of if, but when something is going to go terribly wrong at the 911 center. The third thing is that we recognize the fact that with respect to Comcast, there's consideration in raising fees and placing fees there on Comcast. I don't necessarily object to that. The local doesn't necessarily object to that with respect to generating revenue in the city of Chicago, because it's high time to hold these corporations accountable, especially when they do not pass down their money to their profits to their workers. We represent the Comcast workers in the city of Chicago, and I can tell you they are nowhere near in being in compliance with their franchise agreement under the Equal Employment Opportunity and Affirmative Action Plan that vowed to pay a competitive wage with their competitors. They are $10 to $15 less than them, and the union locations, they punish their union workers that seek to have a voice in the workplace by paying $800 to $3,500 quarterly to these workers because they are union. Again, I thank this body here because certainly it is indicative to the voice of working families that seek economic and social justice. Next month, we seek to have a resolution passed against Comcast, and I also want to thank you and being one of the co-sponsors of that resolution. God bless.
Thank you, Reverend. Ms. Lula White, and Timothy Megan is on deck. Ms. White's from the 2nd Ward. Alderman, if you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Lula White, and I am proud to say that I was a city employee for the Chicago Department of Public Health for 46 years and 3 months. I retired last year, November the 30th, and it really bothered me that the benefit office was privatized. And it took me from November 30th last year up until April of this year to even get a phone call through to the benefit office, which is in, I think, Memphis, Tennessee. So that's privatization. So that ordinance really needs to come out. Committee, I think it's in committee. It needs to come out so it can be voted on. And plus, the insurance is really an issue because we cannot afford to pay. Maybe my pension may be a little more than someone else's because of the years of service that I put in. But we really need our insurance. Now, let me talk about the mental health clinics.
And you're halfway through.
All right. Thank you for restoring that. Chicago Department of Health Commissioner Dr. Shuker needs to be fired. He is not telling the truth about the stats of these federally qualified health centers. They are not seeing the patients that they said they are seeing. And I urge you to look into those stats. Garbage in, garbage out. Dr. Shuker needs to be fired.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. White. Timothy Megan and Diana, it's hard to read, Adanis, I think, is on deck. I'm going to need to start enforcing the 2 minutes. There's so many people who want to talk. We want to be fair, get as many people as we can. So I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but I'll let you know when you're halfway and when the time is up. Go ahead, Mr. Megan.
Right, thank you.
Diane,
So-
Adana? It might say Adams, yeah, sorry. And Mr. Megan, the 33rd Ward.
All right, so first of all, I'd just like to invite everyone here to the Neighborhood Schools Fair, which is going to be November 16th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Clemente High School. Free lunch will be served. Everything is free. There's going to be workshops. We're going to have a DJ. We're going to have student performances in every school. There are 30 on board so far. Are going to have a table, and the purpose of the fair is just to showcase the wonderful things that our neighborhood schools do despite all the difficulties that we face. Smoked Daddy pulled pork sandwiches will be the lunch. Yes, 500 pounds of pork. Now, but what I'd like to speak to more specifically is school privatization in the city of Chicago. It's absolutely wrong. We need to understand, first and foremost, that charter schools do not outperform neighborhood public schools. Rather, they selectively because poverty is the #1 indicator of test scores, not the quality of the teacher in the classroom. And so in order to boost their numbers, what they do is they'll take anybody in, but then they'll use fines in the case of Noble Street, or they'll use disciplinary procedures in order to weed out kids that they know aren't going to score well. If you fail a class in a charter school, they may charge you $100, $250 to make up that credit. They even withhold credit deliberately unless a student transfers, at which time that credit is restored. Those types of practices are wrong. The other thing is that, schools are a social service. Schools are not a business. When you run schools, all right, fine. But when you run schools for profit, and that's what they are, they're investment opportunities and tax shelters for rich people. It's absolutely wrong. That money, 100% of that money should be going into the classroom, and it should not be going into the pockets of wealthy investors who already have plenty of money. So I will wrap up
Mr. Megan.
And say this. Rahm Emanuel needs to go. He's like Emperor Nero playing this lyre while Chicago burns down.
All right, Mr. Megan, thank you.
And it's wrong. Thank you.
Ms. Adams, and on deck is Michael Bellatar. Sorry, Ms. Adams?
Diane Adams.
That's what I said. I just said Ms. Adams, and your ward, please, is not on here.
I'm with the Mental Health Movement Stop on board.
But do you know what ward do you live in?
I'm with Brooklyn, wherever Brooklyn.
21. We'll let you know your ward. 21.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Hi, my name is Diane Adams. I'm one of the consumers that went to one of the clinics that you closed. Before I came to that clinic, I had issues. I lost my son in 96. 98, I tried to commit suicide. 2005, I was found on 94th and Ashland in a coma. I was in a coma for 5 months. I was out of commission for a year. When I went to Olive Gresham, I had a therapist and I had a doctor. Then, when I came out the coma, I went back there to be put in PSR. And psychosocial rehab taught me how to get back out into the community. You see, mental health do helps if you give them a chance. But when we came out here last year to ask y'all to help us, y'all came on board and said y'all will help mental health. But then as soon as the mayor says that I got 50 aldermen, only need 25, y'all shut us down and y'all went to side with him. That's not fair. When we came out, we told them about what going to happen with the closing of the mental health. We told them they were going to be dying, they're going to be killing, incarceration, hospitalization, patients not taking their medicine and getting their shot. Now, everything we talked about, it came to pass. When we tried to put it in the news, they only just show our picture, but nobody was hearing us. You have to understand those people that come out outright, you got millions of women, they need mental health. They don't have insurance. They need it. That's why we are fighting for them to get this help that they need. And we're asking each and one of y'all, please don't renege on us again. Help us continue to get these people back into the program. Please don't close our center because we need them. It's very important. Plus, we need black therapists in these clinics because a white man doesn't understand what a black man is going through.
That's time, Ms. Adams. All right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Michael Bellatar of the 25th Ward, and Sharon Payne is on deck. Sharon Payne.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Mike Bellatar. I'm here tonight to raise objection to any funding in the 2014 budget that would further the implementation of the proposed Ashland Avenue bus rapid transit system. Most of you are probably somewhat familiar with this project and how it would reduce traffic to one lane in each direction along most of Ashland Avenue. Though the project may be well-intended and a well-intended effort to speed the commute for bus riders, the plan will inevitably result in massive congestion along Ashland, move auto and truck traffic to adjacent north-south streets not built for such traffic, and bring about new pedestrian and vehicular safety issues. Besides the existing volume, there are also other conditions along Ashland, trucks that back into bays, blocking traffic in both directions. Cermak in Ashland has a train switching location that blocks traffic almost daily. The promotional hype behind this effort by city planners touts the success of the BRT in other parts of the world. The implication is that bringing BRT here is mirroring those projects. The reality is that no city in the world has a type of BRT configuration being planned for Ashland Avenue. There are at least 4 differences. In each of the other showcased foreign cities, non-BRT traffic has at least 2 lanes in each direction, 3 in some. Most of these foreign avenues are boulevards, 100 feet wide. None of these have semis traveling them, and most of the boulevards do not provide for parking, which is provided for in the BRT.
You need to wrap up shortly.
Justifying this project as something that can succeed because it succeeds elsewhere without having the same fundamental elements is myopic planning. Please do your part to keep this $160 million boondoggle from becoming part of the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Bellatar. Sharon Payne and Kevin Jackson is on deck. Ms. Payne, what ward are you in?
Hello,
Ms. Payne, what's your ward?
I'm with Ms. Hairston.
Leslie Hairston, okay.
My alderwoman. I'd like to say that we need everyone to come out and participate in everything. We are sitting at home. We are arguing amongst our neighbors, and we should be arguing with the mayor. We should get out and vote. That's the first thing, to get rid of the person that's in there that's acting like Napoleon. Secondly, mental health is a problem nationwide, not just Chicago. And we've got 1 million people that are coming home, soldiers that are coming home that are going to need our care. If we don't get this, we're going to have a whole lot of more problems that are going on. We've got mental health that's going on in every single household here. When you're not eating right, when you're not able to work, you're not able to get proper housing, you have a mental health problem. You think you don't have a mental health problem? Lose yours and see what you're going to have. All right, get out here and vote.
Thank you, Ms. Payne.
The person we have in there.
Kevin Jackson and Tammy Vincent, you're on deck. Tammy Vincent.
Thank you, 50th Ward. Thank you, caucus members. I'm Kevin Jackson with the Chicago Rehab Network, a coalition of CDCs for the past 35 years. We want to make sure the budget and the efforts of the city going forward refocuses the housing agenda. I've got some charts for you that you can look at. We've seen an incredible decrease of resources and policies that strengthen neighborhoods, and I'm just going to allow you to take a look at the graphs that we put together so you can see where the city's dropping its resources toward housing. Our remarks are going to be ready next week with the other budget, but let me just do this for orientation for people. The stagnation in income, high loss of population, and the high number of renters and owners paying more than 30% of housing at all income levels in the city of Chicago demonstrates a crisis level of neighborhood instability that we have not seen in years. The housing insecurity in our city is widespread, and it's deeply interconnected with education, safety, and chronic unemployment. The foundation of safe, quality, and affordable housing must come first.
Halfway, sir.
These are difficult issues to grapple with, and we hope that policymakers will not look away at what happened in the 2000s when we lost so much family rental housing. It was a public policy decision to allow good quality housing to convert to condominiums, which were not in demand. Condo conversions were occurring at an unprecedented pace, not by demand from those renting, but rather by the gains of investors could make through the conversion to ownership. Beyond the fraud perpetuated to consumers in neighborhoods that we would discover years later, the issues point to the need for leadership and action rather than expecting market forces to meet each needs of Chicagoans. We need to have an occupancy strategy to deal with the foreclosed housing. We look forward to talking with you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Ms. Tammy Vinson of the 28th Ward, and on deck is Harvey Kahler, or Kaler probably, Harvey Kaler. Ms. Vinson? Tammy Vinson? So now that on deck means be ready here. Ms. Vinson's of the 28th Ward.
Hi, I'm also a Chicago public school teacher, and my concerns are the decisions that are being made for our schools by people that have not taught in Chicago, mostly don't live in Chicago, have no interest in supporting our students. I'm also a member of the CTU Black Caucus, and one of the things we'd like to make sure that the board is held accountable for is the lack of black studies in our classrooms. Our kids are not being taught about their culture. They're not, their culture is not being valued. The black teacher population is diminishing every year, and that's an issue for me, for my students, and for my community. So my hope is that the Progressive Caucus will consider the fact that if we want to curb crime in our neighborhoods, get our kids in college, have them working and doing all these things, that those needs have to be addressed.
Thank you, Ms. Vinson. Harvey Kaler of the 49th Ward, and on deck is Jesus Camporado Chuy, I think is part of the name there. Jesus Chuy.
Good evening, members of the caucus. Thank you for hearing us. I'm going to switch gears here for a little bit and talk about transportation. I think it is incredibly unfair that downtown, which is the major beneficiary for all the transportation services we have in this city, pays absolutely nothing for that service. It's unfair to the riders especially. The money comes out of their pockets, either through the fares or through the sales tax. But the business owners, the property owners downtown, for whether it's an office building, a law firm, or a store or something, they get away scot-free. There's no underlying payment for those services. And Metro doesn't even get a nickel out of the sales tax from downtown, because that's the city, and the CTA gets all of that. Another thing related to that, lack of city funding for Metro, is the Metro Electric line has 40 stations within the city of Chicago, and it's underused. And it's a terrible waste of a resource. But Metro really can't afford to keep running that service without the underlying support. And I'm afraid that one of these days, it's going to be gone.
Thank you, Mr. Kaler. Mr. Comparano, Chewy, and on deck is Mary Jones. Mary Jones.
Good evening, Alderman. I'm
And
from
Jesus is from the second ward.
I am from the second ward. First of all, I want to thank you for taking a step forward. And I always chant, when public services are under attack, what do? And you have taught me that. Because you're standing up to a big person who doesn't give a crap about services that are being cut in our city. I want to encourage you to buy this book, because buy this book for the aldermen who are not here, who should be here, sitting here, okay? Okay? I want to encourage you to do that, because Christmas is around the corner, hey. All right, my friend's back there, she's the author of this book. She wrote a whole series of what Ram has done to this city and how he has affected services. I don't want to take too much of the time, but I want to tell you something personal to me. I suffer with severe depression. I'm getting help for that right now through a prior provider, because I didn't know about the public mental health clinics. If I would have known back then, I would have gone to one of them. Second, I truly have to say that one of my solutions for dealing with severe depression is activism. And this mayor, because this mayor has inspired me to keep on and continue to fight against him until he's out of office.
Time's up.
I want to encourage you to do the same thing and encourage other aldermen to step on forward with this Progressive Caucus group.
All right, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. I assume your friend is signing books in the back? No, just kidding. Mary Jones and Ron Batag is on deck. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you.
Ms. Jones of the 6th Ward.
Yes, 6th Ward. Good evening. I want to thank the members of the City Council Progressive Caucus for holding this hearing. My name is Mary Jones, and I am the president of Subchapter 60 of ASME, Chapter 31 Retirees. I also serve as Secretary-Treasurer of Chapter 31. ASME believes that the retirees' insurance is a benefit that employees earned while they worked, and that once it is earned, the city cannot decide on its own to take it away. This means that the city has an obligation to continue the cost-sharing arrangements that have now been in place for almost 25 years. I can tell you from personal experience that the health care subsidy is very important. When I retired after working 33 years for the Chicago Public Library, I did so with the understanding that I would receive subsidies for my health care. And the health care plans are limited. In fact, they don't even cover mammograms. But if the subsidies are cut, then that forces me and most other retirees to make some hard choices about how to get by on our modest pensions. We don't get Social Security. The city's argument that retirees won't be hurt by this plan because we can get insurance through the Affordable Care Act isn't backed up by the facts. At this point, we don't know enough about the specifics of the plan being offered. From initial reviews, it seems clear that many retirees will not get much assistance from the federal subsidies. The city has also argued that it must stop providing health care subsidies to retirees because it can no longer afford it. The mayor's budget shows a savings of more than $23 million in 2014.
Time's up, Ms. Jones. Finish up. Okay.
But that's $23 million. But that $23 million is coming out of the pockets of retirees who worked hard all their lives and are now struggling to make ends meet. And that's just the beginning. By 2017, retirees will not get any subsidy for covering our health insurance costs. So this is not a question of resources. The city clearly has the resources for private corporations, TIF districts, big projects. This is a question of priorities.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you.
Ron Bettag, and on deck is Dr. Laura Chamberlain. Mr. Bettag, what is your ward?
50th.
Thank you.
My name is Ron Bettag. I'm here to put two questions on the table. One, as most people begin to realize, we're actually dealing nationally and locally with more of what we call as a government, which is a criminal enterprise. And what's not in these discussions is that Wall Street itself is broke. That we have hundreds of trillions of dollars of paper being based on nothing but these derivatives. It's in the literally 1.6 quadrillion. That's 1,000 trillions. Now that's what we've been bailing out, and that's also what's now being moved at with Dodd-Frank for a bail-in, where they just take people's deposits. Now, there's a bill that directly deals with that. It's called Glass-Steagall. It was law of the land coming out of Roosevelt up until 1999. If we reinstate that, we can actually split these two types of banks, take this money off the books, and be in a position where we could direct credit for development. So this is a Glass-Steagall bill. There's two bills in the Senate. There's one in the House with 67 co-sponsors. Congressman Danny Davis, Jan Schakowsky, Dan Lipinski, and Luis Gutierrez. They're all co-sponsors. They should be leading this thing publicly. My question to the panel here is, one, a Progressive Caucus endorsement of those bills. Publicly, just take the pressure. It's momentum at this point. And secondly, if you'd hold a public hearing on Glass-Steagall so people actually know they have some power to function like Roosevelt did and win this. And I'll be in the back if people have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bettag. Dr. Laura Chamberlain of the 40th Ward, and on deck, Luisa Gonzalez.
Hi. Hi, thank you very much, Alderman. I'm going to switch pace just a little bit. And by the way, I was one of the citizens that challenged Rahm Emanuel at the Board of Elections for his residency status. We didn't win, but we tried, right? So I wanted to talk a little bit about global warming. All of these problems that everybody was talking about here are really dire and very important to our communities, but we cannot forget that we are on planet Earth and we're facing the largest human catastrophe in the history of mankind, and that is global warming. Global climate chaos, and we're part of it. So everybody thinks that it's nice now in Chicago because we're a little warmer and our winters aren't so bad, except we're also at great risk for very severe heat waves and water shortages. The lake, Michigan, is 2 feet down from average levels, and it is all because of global climate change. So 80% of all of the known carbon reserves in the world must stay in the ground. Okay, I'm going to repeat that one more time. 80%. That means gas, oil, coal must stay in the ground. All of the climate scientists say it. 28% of our energy is wasted. And so we have a lot of sky rises that are wasting a lot of energy. Can't we tax those skyscrapers for energy wasted tax and use it to put up our renewable energy and create some jobs in the city? How about it? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chamberlain. Luisa Gonzalez, and on deck is Thomas LaLuga. I hope I'm saying that right name, or LaLugos, I think. And Ms. Gonzalez, what ward are you in?
Hi.
Oh, Munoz. It
Good
says
evening.
Rick Munoz.
Yes. Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Luisa Gonzalez. I work and live in Chicago. I'm the union member in SEIU Local 1. And, yeah! Her name is Rosa. I'm here for support to the janitors from the airport O'Hare because the last year the United Maintenance Company, they took over janitorial work for that O'Hare airport. The problem from these workers, for my co-workers, is because these companies started to pay lower wage. And this is why we are here, because we have to stand strong together we are fight for our jobs because we need to full-time, good benefits, and good jobs. This is the point. But now this is United Maintenance and GRLX. They don't respect to the people because they paid what they wanted. But we don't need to poverty level jobs. We need to good jobs. This is why we like to, I'm here because we need $2.5 million for budget for these jobs, for good jobs for them. And then, I'm sorry. Because
just about 30 seconds.
Okay, for these jobs. And that's it. Only I need to that you listen to us because we concern, this is for everybody because we need to get fair money for everybody, not only for someone, for everybody. And this is why I says thank you, Progressive Caucus, and I hope you help everybody for them.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Mr. Lalugos, and on deck is Elliot El-Amin, and Mr. Lalugos, you're either in the 36th or 29th ward, maybe 36th. Okay.
I'm actually on the 36th ward, but since
I see. Okay.
The redraw of the wards, which was done in order to strip some of these people sitting up here from their power, I am now on the 29th ward.
Okay.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to thank you for having the guts to be able to stand up to the mayor and the privatization that is happening in the city. I don't think it's easy because that 1% is very true. There is a lot of money behind this thing that's happening, not just here, but around the country. Whether you're talking about privatizing prisons or privatizing schools or health clinics or all of those things, this is something that is huge, and Mr. Emanuel is the poster child for that. And coupled with that is the fact that he has a lot of money in his war chest in order to run for mayor for the next time. And I would love to see one of you guys challenge him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lalugos. Elliot El-Amin, and on deck is Ronald Jackson. Mr. El-Amin from the 50th Ward.
Yes, good evening, Alderman, and I want to thank you all for having this forum so that the community can speak its issues directly to you. You can see the faces of people that are affected by your policies. I've been a business person in Chicago for 32 years now. And over those years, I've seen, this privatization effort take city business from, a good situation to a very, very poor situation for businesses in Chicago. I want to speak to two issues, and maybe they can be looked at. One, in the charter schools, that's usually overlooked, but the charter schools are getting millions of dollars of state funds. If those funds would go through CPS, CPS has MBE program, WBE program for local businesses getting involved in their contracts. Charter schools have absolutely nothing. None of the businesses have to fight and scratch to do business with the charter schools. If those funds were in public schools, then that wouldn't have to happen because programs are in place that have been in place for years to ensure that there are minority and women-owned businesses that participate. Another issue that you may want to look at, the privatization of the electricity contract that went through last year. The federal government, as well as Water Reclamation District, they both have in place a policy to purchase their electricity and natural gas through what's called reverse auction process. Reverse auctions have been proven to reduce costs in purchasing by a large percentage. You all need to look at that in your upcoming electricity purchase for, I believe it's fleet and management. It's coming up this year, which will save, Metropolitan Water Reclamation District saved about $20 million in their purchase. So that's a possibility of savings for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. El-Amin. Ronald Jackson. On deck is Leah Freed, or Leah Fried, probably Freed. Mr. Jackson. Oh, is it you? As long as you talk in the mic, you can be comfortable.
I promise you I'll talk in the mic.
You are indeed. And what is your ward, Mr. Jackson?
Okay.
20th
Matter
ward.
of fact, guess what?
20th ward.
Oh, Charlie, you've moved. But this is to Charlie. Insanity. Define doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome. And that's what's happening here. I mean, you know, I'm hearing the same thing, and I know that, you know, I'm going to come in for time. I live in a nursing facility on the south side. I'm in Willie Cochran's district, 20. And when it comes, you know, last year when the mental health clinics were being shut down, I was one of the 23 that was arrested. Matter of fact, I was arrested 4 times last year for mental health. But last week on the 22nd, there was a program over at DuSable Museum where I got a chance to meet a lady that really inspired me, and it was the mother of Fred Hampton.
Halfway, sir.
Okay, she expressed to me, she says, you know, I like what you're doing, I like where you're going. She said, but you know what? Instead of trying to be a leader, I want you to be a bulldog. She said, because, see, the leaders go to jail, and I want you to stop going to jail. She says, I want you to have a voice out there in the community. I want you to challenge the status quo. So if I could tell Charlie anything, and that is, you know, we grew up on a tar and feather situation. I think that Mayor Emanuel and everybody that votes with him, I mean, that has stolen Chicago. It's time to give it back. It's time to reflect towards the future. And if that reflection means wiping out every alderman, every statesman, everybody all the way up to the White House, then let's. I mean, if you're doing your job,
That's
guess
time,
what?
Mr. Jackson.
I'll vote for you. But outside of that, Matt wants to wants to remind that how many millions to DePaul. You know, that's ridiculous.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Freed from the 40th ward.
Hi, I'm Leah Freed. I'm actually a UE organizer, so welcome to the UE Hall, and thank you all for coming out to fight back and take back our city, and thank you to the Progressive Caucus. I actually just wanted to say a few words as a CPS parent, and I'm here with some other mad moms from our neighborhood in the fight that we're engaged in the 40th ward, really to fight for neighborhood schools and how difficult it's been over the last couple years. We've been organizing to ensure that our school gets the funding it needs and that all schools are fully funded. But there's a real disturbing edge to this because there's a complete lack of transparency when it comes to CPS. And it's very frustrating just to find out basic facts about how funds are being allocated. The mayor recently announced he'd put $24 million of the TIF surplus back into the schools. How is that going to be distributed? We have no idea. How is that determined? I support Common Sense CPS, their proposal that it be equally distributed, which would mean our school would get about $18,000, which would be nice for toilet paper. But
hey, Nick.
Yeah. But this is something I urge you to take up. I know that I know that there's a proposal languishing for the moratorium on charter schools, but also pushing just for more transparency about how funding is allocated in CPS and to the charter school system as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Freed. Michael Ovitz, while you make your way to the microphone, I've been asked to just read this from Lori Chandler. It's a comment, Alderman, and this is from somebody from the 27th Ward. It says, I'm a retired city worker that has put in time and hard work during my tenure only to find that the city will not take care of me. How can the city revoke my health care after I did my part to achieve city services? How is everything going up except my earned pension? Why desert our seniors? After listening to testimonies, I can see there will be necessities for mental health care because the seniors that are stressed about not having affordable health care on a small city pension. Rom, why is the respect to the persons who made the city what it is prior to now? All right, and Mr. Ovitz, and on deck is Jerry Baginski.
Good evening. My name is Michael Ovitz. I live in the 9th Ward. I was in the 6th Ward with Sawyer until we were redistricted out, unfortunately, and now we're in the new leadership. One of the things that I've learned just talking to African-American business owners throughout the 9th Ward is that in using TIF money, a lot of the old businesses that have been around for a very long time are being moved. And a part of the TIF agreement, from what I understand, is if a business has been existent and you want to bring in a new business to that location and you need the old location for the new business, that old business should have, is given an option to have somewhere else to go within that ward and not just be completely moved out. And I'm afraid that what's happening now is that in our particular ward, the 9th Ward, is that these businesses are being moved out, but they're not given any place to go. They've been moved out for big box businesses and not being properly taken care of. And some of the African-American churches throughout the community that supported individuals to get in office, and their backs have been turned on them. Just like the issue with the water issue, when we called and talked about helping out the churches and now having to pay those enormous water fees that they cannot afford.
Halfway.
And been told that they wouldn't do anything for them. So I encourage guys, you individuals today, since you are here, to continue to help and support those older businesses that are in the community. They're the backbone of the community, and they're the ones that continue to drive the economy. And I look forward to continue working with you guys in the future. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Ovitz. Jerry Baginski is the last sheet I have up here, so while we get the question from Ms. Baginski, if anybody else has a sheet, now is the time to turn it in. Jerry Baginski? Or maybe I'm just supposed to read this. I'll go ahead and read it. All right. Well, I'll just go ahead and read it. Jerry, it's probably here. This is from the 2nd Ward. Alderman, if you're ready. It says, you, a citizen of Chicago, can change things in your ward. Vote and work and support your candidate of choice. When the 32nd Ward, with about $70,000, challenged the incumbent with $700,000, we won, and Scott Wagaspack has been a great leader and representative in this city. It can be done. Signed, Scott Wagaspack. No, I'm kidding. All right, that's the last of the notes I have. Now, the good news is I know these aldermen will stay on for a bit to talk to you, especially if you have questions about your own wards that you'd like to talk to them. I want to, again, give my thanks to Carl Rosen, the United Electrical Workers, for use of this hall, and his assistants, to CAN TV for airing this. We're on television right now. You'll be able to also check it out on youtube.com/CHICAN TV. I sure hope you'll all tune in to Politics Tonight every weeknight at 6 p.m. and 9:30 on CLTV, because we take your calls. You're talking here, talk to us on CLTV. By the way, my producer Jordan's here, so you can say hi to her while you're here. And if you would, please help me thank Alderman. Oh, I know. We have a, you know what? You're coming up for some final words, aren't you, Alderman? Bob, sorry. Alderman Fioretti. But while he's making his way up, I want to if I can, give thanks Alderman Rick Munoz and John Arena, Rod Sawyer, whose daddy, by the way, was father of this great city. If you didn't know that, his dad's Eugene Sawyer. And Alderman Scott Wagaspack, and Alderman Tony Folks, and Alderman Nick Sposato, and the great Alderman Bob Fioretti.
Thank you. First of all, I know everybody was saying I was going to wrap it up tonight, but first of all, we were here to listen to you, and I want to thank everybody for coming out today, because what we heard on the mental health clinics, sometimes we don't hear in the council. What we hear on the schools, we know we don't hear in the council. What we hear on the issues that are affecting infrastructure, whether it's bad decisions, we don't hear really in the council. A couple of people got up here and said, get active and vote. Well, yes, get active and vote. We have to change the way the city council does business. We don't have quorums at committees that affect all of your lives, and yet we vote on them at the next meeting. We should be holding 2 meetings a year, 2 meetings a month, but we do a procedural move that we only allow 1 meeting a month. We should be holding meetings, not only maybe one meeting during the day, 1 meeting at night. And when we were at Take Back Chicago, the first woman that came up there talked about, or the second woman that came up there talked about the mental health clinics and the closings. I went up, and I think I speak for all of my colleagues here. I apologize to her that we voted for that budget, and I am so sorry, and I know so are they, because we thought we'd give a chance to somebody that came into this town and was going to bring in all the contacts, all the clout, all the cash, and look what we've got. A corporate city, not a city of communities, not a city of the people. You know, the next time around, and I'm not saying because every time I do that Mr. Jackson who said about changing the way in the city council from the bottom up, well, yes, that's what we need to do. So on behalf of my colleagues here, though, I do want to say thank you for being here. We listened to you. I hope all these have phone numbers because we're going to follow up with a lot of you. We're going to be here. But if we're going to develop this city into the type of city that we want, a city that reaches out to all the people, all the communities, we have to do business differently in this city. We have to change the TIFs. We have to change the corporate structure because we need safety in our streets. We need an educational system that teaches and listens to the teachers and not to the corporate few. And yet at the same time, we need to bring in businesses that expand our base so we all have jobs. And again, you know, Scott and I and John were at a meeting in D.C. We came back. But I went to a restaurant on the far south side, and I went to the Aldi's at 63rd, 2 blocks away from, on Sunday, 2 blocks away from where they're going to put a Whole Food. I looked at the customers in there, and the cashier recognized who I was, and I was happy about that, but I listened to some of the complaints that they had. You know, I traveled the south side on Sunday, and I said, we're closing our backs on our communities. We're closing our backs on our people. The closure of the 50 schools closed our backs on 50 communities. Only together can we rise up and take back Chicago. And it's by listening to you and a mayor that goes out to every community and listens to you, will we succeed. The future is just beginning today. And on behalf of my members of the caucus, we all thank you for being here.
I promise to be shorter than Alderman Fioretti. I just want to thank everybody for coming out. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your input. There's only so much we can do. There's only 8 of us. We take this very serious. We appreciate your input. I want to thank Paul. I want to thank Ben for coming out. Ben always supports us. There's a like-minded candidate like us also out here right now. I don't know, we didn't recognize him. He's a good friend of the caucus, Eddie Winters. He's running for state rep. So if you're in Eddie's district, he could use your help. So thank you very much, everybody.
All right, that'll wrap us up. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Thanks to our audience at home who's been watching. And come visit with your alderman if you'd like to do that. Good night, everybody.